Our topic today is types of poetry. Types of poetry. We'll begin by looking at the epic. The epic as a type of poetry. And we define the epic as a long narrative poem written in an elevated style using flowery language and used to eulogize heroic deeds or used to praise heroic deeds. We need to explain the definition by taking on the key terms. For instance, that the epic is a narrative poem means that it tells a story. The epic is written in a grand style or elevated style because it is the style that is suitable for its thematic concerns, what it talks about. The epic talks about the actions of great men, the heroic actions of highly placed members of society. And so you need a style that is refined, that is elevated, a style that is not ordinary. Style is usually reflected in the language deployed in the literary text. So the style of the epic is found in its language, in its use of language, the kind of language deployed in the epic. It's a refined language. It's a language that has its own dignity. The tone is solemn, so that it will be suitable for the kind of occasion that the epic is used for. Stylistically, all works of literature should operate based on its own level of style. So the style of the epic is grand, it's elevated. Then the length of the epic is implied in the expression long, in the definition. And the epic is the longest type of poetry. The epic is the longest type of poetry. It is organized in books and cantos. It's organized in books and cantos. And the epic could reach up to 12 books. The epic could reach up to 12 books. Each book has a number of cantos, C-A-N-T-O-S. For instance, you can have up to 5 cantos making up one book. That's the division of the epic, in case you are asked. The epic is lengthy. You could use days to read the epic. That's how lengthy it is. But, it is amazing, therefore, that people could compose and memorize the epic and recite it during official functions, because the epic began in oral form. The epic began in oral form. It did not begin as a written art. It did not begin as a written art. It was orally composed, memorized, and then recited whenever needed. And so you could imagine the power of the human mind to store up such information. And it existed in the oral form for over a number of years, many years, thousands of years. Some of them have been lost, but we have some that have been written down when writing was invented. For instance, you have the Iliad. You have the Iliad by Homer. It's a very good example of an epic, the Iliad by Homer. Iliad by Homer. So the epic was used to praise heroes' actions in the battlefield. The action of kings, nobles, knights, their bravery, their courage, the battlefield. For instance, the Iliad deals with the Trojan War and tells us the stories of the heroes of the Trojan War, like Hector, like Achilles, like Paris, Agamemnon, and the other war heroes of the Trojan War. Let's just look at the mock epic. The mock epic. There's so much to say about the epic. For instance, the epic has its own plot structure, right? The epic has its own plot structure, which is in the middle of things. All right? The plot structure of the epic is in the middle of things. In Latin, we call it in medias res. In medias res. Spelled I-N space M-E-D-I-A-S space R-E-S in medias res. That is the plot structure of the epic. It's Latin for in the middle of things. In the middle of things. It's Latin for in the middle of things. What that means is that the plot structure of the epic is non-chronological. Specifically, it begins in the middle of the events. The plot structure of the epic is non-chronological, and it begins in the middle of the events. That's what we mean by in medias res. It's Latin for in the middle of things. In the middle of things. Another thing you need to note about the epic is that it begins with an invocation of the muse. It begins with an invocation of the muse. The epic usually begins with an invocation of the muse. Muse is spelled capital M-U-S-E and refers to the supernatural force that inspires poets to write. The gods of poetry, the goddess of poetry, the supernatural force that inspires poets to write, that serves an inspiration. Writers need inspiration to write, and traditionally it is believed that you cannot write without being inspired. And at this time in human history, when people believed in the existence of the supernatural forces, the author's inspiration was supernatural, was a force that was beyond the man himself. But now we can have different sources of inspiration. Now we can have different sources of inspiration. Your friend could inspire you. Your experiences could inspire you. Even fame could inspire you. I want to write. You could say, I want to write so that I'll be known. Okay? Anything. But traditionally, poets drew their inspiration from the supernatural. But so before the poet begins writing the poem, he has to first of all call on the muse to inhabit him and take over the writing process. All right? Just as the pastor says that God should take over the sermon, and let it not be him speaking, but let it be God speaking through him. The same thing that the muse does, calls on the gods of poetry to take over the creative writing process. So the epic begins with an invocation of the muse. That's one important thing you need to note about the epic. Then the mock epic. The mock epic. Mock epic. You can also call it the mock heroic epic. The mock heroic epic. Mock is M-O-C-K, or mock heroic epic. You call it the mock epic, you can call it the mock heroic epic. So while the epic was popular in the classical period and in the Renaissance, while the epic was popular in the classical period and in the Renaissance, for instance, in the Renaissance, you have epics such as Paradise Lost by John Milton, an example of Renaissance epic, Paradise Lost by John Milton. You also have The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser in the Renaissance, because the Renaissance writers drew their inspiration from the classical writers. The mock epic was popular in the 18th century English history, English literary history. The mock epic was popular in the 18th century English literary history, 18th century. The mock epic was popular in the 18th century English history or English literary history. The mock epic has all the characteristics of the epic. The mock epic has all the characteristics of the epic. The mock epic has all the characteristics of the epic. It is lengthy, tells a story, written in elevated style, uses high flowery language, except one thing. Except one thing. And that is that it treats trivial subject matter. It treats a trivial subject matter. Trivial is spelled trivial is spelled T-R-I-V-I-A-L, trivial subject matter. T-R-I-V-I-A-L, trivial subject matter. Meaning the epic treats light subject matter or unserious subject matter. The epic treats light subject matter or unserious subject matter compared to the epic that treated or that treats serious issues. So the result is that the mock epic is satiric in tone. 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 Satiric. It causes laughter. That's what I mean. It causes laughter. It causes laughter. Right? It uses serious style to treat something unserious. The result is laughter. The result is satire. And what is satire? The satire is a work of art that ridicules human weaknesses in order to correct them. Satire is a work of art that laughs at human weaknesses, human foibles, in order to correct them. Right? That's what a satire is. So mock epics are satiric in nature. So if you're asked to discuss the difference between the epic and the mock epic, now you know. Right? Now you know. It has all the characteristics of the epic, but it treats on serious subject matter. And that results in laughter. We laugh. Okay? A good example of the mock epic, a good example of the mock epic is a poem by Alexander Pope. It's a poem by Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope, yes, the Pope that you know. Alexander Pope, P-O-P-E, Alexander Pope. All right, or should I spell Alexander? Entitled The Rape of the Lock. The Rape of the Lock. A poem by Alexander Pope entitled The Rape of the Lock. The Rape of the Lock. The Rape of the Lock. R-A-P-E. R-A-P-E. The Rape of the Lock. Lock is spelled L-O-C-K. L-O-C-K. Lock. The Rape of the Lock. So even the title suggests the light tone of the poem, because the rape in this poem is not the conventional, traditional notion of rape, but rather the rape of a violation of somebody's lock of hair, or somebody uses to tie her hair. Somebody touches it without permission, and that results in a rape, right? Let's just look at elegy. Elegy. Elegy is spelled E-L-E-G-Y. So don't always add R. So elegy is one of the words commonly misspelled. Elegy is one of the words commonly misspelled. So don't fall into the trap. Don't fall into the temptation of including R in your spelling of elegy. The trap is always there. The temptation is always there. And when you're writing elegy, the R will say, include me, include me, include me. Right? But you must remember that the R must not be included in the spelling of an elegy. Right? So the elegy is a poem of mourning. Elegy is a poem of mourning. By mourning, we mean crying, weeping, right? Elegy is a poem of mourning. It's a poem that mourns a loss. Elegy is a poem that mourns a loss, the demise of a dear one. Elegy is a poem that mourns a loss, mourns the demise of a dear one, or something valuable to the mourner, the persona, the poet. So the elegy usually has melancholic tone. The elegy usually has what? Melancholic tone. The elegy usually has melancholic tone. Melancholic tone is a sad tone, right? It's a more difficult way of saying it has a sad tone. Melancholic tone is a sad tone. And of course, it has to have a sad tone because it is mourning the demise of someone dear to the poet. Word tone is the attitude of the speaker towards the subject matter being discussed, as could be inferred from diction, the choice of words, right? Where tone refers to the attitude of the speaker, attitude of the writer, attitude of the persona towards the subject matter being discussed, usually inferred through diction or through choice of words, because diction means choice of words. So, but you see, the elegy usually goes beyond mourning a loss to making statements about the times. To making what? Statements about the times. Describing the character of the period, the character of the age. In the elegy, the dead person's virtues are extolled. In the elegy, the dead person's virtues are extolled. In the elegy, the dead person's virtues are extolled. Memories of his life are relived. Memories of his life are relived. Relived, that means lived again. Through the words of the persona. Right? Through the words of the persona. Memories of the demised person, the person that has died, is or are relived through the words of the persona. That's by persona, I mean the voice speaking in the poem. A persona, I mean the voice speaking in the poem, which really represents the poet's voice, but not the poet himself. Okay? And this is done to immortalize the life of this person. Because remember, all that everyone seeks in life is immortality. So through this elegiac verse, elegiac is spelled E-L-E-G-I-A-C, elegiac verse, the dead person is immortalized, because as long as the poem remains, the memories of the person will not die, not be lost. But then again, in the course of talking about the virtues of the dead person, the poet can also make statements about the political or the socio-political circumstances of the time. Also make statements about the socio-political circumstances of the time. In the course of mourning, talking about the dead person, the things that he used to do while alive, the poet can also talk about the socio-political circumstances of his day. So the mourning serves as a vehicle for talking about other issues. This is let's talk about a dirge. A dirge. A dirge. A dirge. A dirge. Dirge. D-I-R-G-E. D-I-R-G-E. A dirge. Dirge. Right? Dirge. The dirge is also a poem of mourning and a poem of loss. The dirge is also a poem of mourning and a poem of loss. The dirge is also a poem of mourning and a poem of loss. But there's a slight difference between the dirge and the elegy. There's a slight difference between the dirge and the elegy. There's a slight difference between the dirge and the elegy. And the difference is that the dirge is more spontaneous than the elegy. The dirge is more spontaneous than the elegy. The elegy is more organized. But the dirge is more spontaneous. Because the dirge comes at the spur of the moment. It is the immediate reaction to a loss. The dirge is an immediate reaction to a loss. Everybody say the dirge is an immediate reaction to a loss. The dirge is an immediate reaction to a loss. That's what the dirge is. Something happens, and at the spur of the moment, whatever you say, that reaction is dirge-like, because it is spontaneous. Okay? And reacts immediately to loss, to the loss. But there is more preparation put into the elegy. The elegy is more organized. It has more restraint because the poet has more time to prepare his thoughts. So that cry that escapes from the individual when something tragic has occurred is a dirge. Any spontaneous reaction to a loss constitutes a dirge. You must remember that. But the elegy is more organized, more celebratory, more organized, more celebratory than the dirge, because the dirge is more or less full of lamentation. The dirge is full of lamentation. Why has this happened? Everybody come and see what has happened to me. All right? My hope is gone. All I've had is gone. That's dirge. Immediate reaction to the Lord. It's well-like. In fact, it is wailing. Let's look at an threnody. 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 T-H-R-E-N-O-D-Y. T-H-R-E-N-O-D-Y. R. Not R. R. It's R. R. T-H-R-E-N-O-D-Y. R. T-H-R-E-N-O-D-Y. Threnody. Right? Threnody. The threnody can be defined. The threnody can be defined as a short poem that mourns the dead. A short poem that mourns the dead. A short poem that mourns the dead. Like the threnody for Bosman. I think the poem is online. The threnody for Bosman. All right, it's an example. A short poem that mourns the dead. So just know that. Most of you look as if you're coming across these terms for the first time. Alternative for Bosman. Alternative for Bosman. It's online. You can access it. The alternative for Bosman. It's online. Okay? Alternative for Bosman. The African American actor who passed away not long after acting the Black Panther. The alternative for Bosman. So I wrote the poem to remember him. Right? So we have the ode. The ode. The ode. The ode. The ode. The ode. O-D-E, the ode. O-D-E, the ode. Right? The ode. It is not ode. Okay? The ode. So, how old were you when you realized that it was ode, not ode? So the ode is a praise poem. 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 The ode is a praise poem. It is a praise poem. P-R-A-I-S-E. Praise. Praise poem. All right? Poem. 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 Right? So one thing you need to note about the ode is that it does not discriminate its objects of praise. The ode does not discriminate its object of praise. That is a major characteristic of the ode. It does not discriminate its object of praise. And what does that mean? It means that the ode could praise just about anything. Persons, objects, seasons of the year, and so on and so forth. There are three major types of ode. There are three major types of ode. There are three major types of ode. These are the Pindaric ode, the Pindaric ode, the Pindaric ode. Pindaric ode is spelled P-I-N-D-A-R-I-C. P-I-N-D-A-R-I-C. Pindaric ode. Right? If you don't call it the Pindaric ode, you call it the regular ode. The regular ode. Regular ode. The regular ode. The regular ode. Regular ode. And then you have the irregular ode. Then you have the irregular ode. Then you have the irregular ode and the Horatian ode. The Horatian ode. Horatian ode. Horatian is spelled H-O-R-A-T-I-A-N. Horatin. Horatin. Tin. Oration. Tin. Oration. Named after Horace, the Roman satirist and poet. The Pindaric Ode is named after Pindar. The Pindaric Ode is named after Pindar, who was its Greek originator. The Pindaric Ode is named after Pindar, who was its Greek originator. Pindar is spelled P-I-N-D-A-R, Pindar. So from Pindar, you have Pindaric, right? Who was the originator of this type of ode. So the odes of Pindar were modeled after the chorus in Greek drama. After the sung by the chorus in Greek drama. Modeled after the sung by the chorus in Greek drama. They were organized in three stanza sets. They were organized in three stanza sets. They were organized in three stanza sets, known as the strophe, antistrophe, and the epode. Strophe is spelled S-T-R-O-P-H-E, strophe. Then you have antistrophe and the epode, E-P-O-D-E, 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 epode. So the strophe refers to the stanza that is sung when the chorus moves to the right. When the chorus moves to the right, as when the dance rhythm of the chorus moves right. The antistrophe refers to the stanza that is sung when the chorus moves to the left. When the chorus moves to the left, and the epode is sung when the chorus stands still. When the chorus stands still. When the chorus stands still. Strophe is sung when the chorus moves right. Antistrophe is sung when the chorus moves left. And the epode is sung when the chorus stands still. Okay? In English poetry, the Pindaric or the regular ode is modified. In English poetry, the Pindaric or the regular ode is modified so that all the strophes and antistrophes are written in one stanza pattern. In English poetry, the Pindaric or the regular ode is modified in such a way that all the strophes and the antistrophes are written in one stanza pattern, while all the epodes are written in another stanza pattern. Ode to the West Wind. Ode to the West Wind. Ode to the West Wind by Percy Bysshe Shelley is an example of The regular ode in English. The regular ode in English. Shelley's Ode to the West Wind is an example of a regular ode in English. The irregular ode is more popular than the regular ode. The regular ode is more popular than the regular ode is more popular than the regular ode because of its simplicity. Because of its simplicity of style. Because of the simplicity of its style. The regular ode was introduced by Abraham Cowley. The regular ode was introduced by Abraham Cowley, an imitator of Pindar. Abraham Cowley. Cowley is spelled C-O-W-L-E-Y. Cowley is spelled C-O-W-L-E-Y. Abraham Cowley, an English poet, introduced the irregular ode. He imitated Pindar. He imitated Pindar. He imitated Pindar. However, he allowed each stanza to establish its own rhythm and structures. He allowed each stanza to establish its own rhythm and its own structures. He allowed each stanza to establish its own rhythm and its own structure. Horatian ode is calm and meditative. Horatian ode is calm and meditative. Horatian ode is calm and meditative. It is also colloquial. It's also colloquial. Colloquial is spelled C-O-O-C-O-L-O. Colloquial is spelled C-O-L-L-O-Q-U-I-A-L. C-O-L-L-O-Q-U-I-A-L. Colloquial, meaning that it makes use of ordinary, everyday language. Colloquial language is informal language. Ordinary, everyday language in its informal mood. Colloquial language is informal language. The Horatian ode is written in a single repeated stanza form. A single repeated stanza form, which makes it homostrophic in nature. Which makes it homostrophic. H-O-M-O-S-T-R-O-P-I-C. Homostrophic in nature. Homostrophic in nature. So what you need to keep in mind is that the ode is a praise poem that does not discriminate that which it praises. That is the most important thing to keep in mind. You should also remember the three types of odes that we mentioned. When we look at the lyric, the lyric, the lyric, the lyric, the lyric, L-Y-R-I-C, the lyric. The lyric is a short poem that expresses intense emotion. The lyric is a short poem that expresses intense emotions. The lyric is a poem of emotion, right? The lyric is a poem of emotion. It is usually sung. The lyric is usually sung. The lyric is usually sung. based on the music produced by an instrument called the lyre. The lyre. The lyre. Based on the song produced by the instrument called the lyre. L-Y-R-E. That's where it gets the name lyric. The instrument is L-Y-R-E. L-Y-R-E. So remember that any poem that expresses intense emotion is a lyric. Even sonnets are lyrics, lyrical poems. So the lyric is an umbrella name for poems that contain intense emotions. All your church hymns are lyric in nature. All your church hymns are lyrical in nature. Church hymns are lyrical in nature because they contain religious emotions. Usually help transport the worshippers to realms unknown when they sing the hymn. Odes are also lyrical poems. 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 Let's look at the ballad. 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 Ballad is a narrative poem. Ballad is a narrative poem. It is usually sung. It is usually sung. Other names the ballad goes by include popular ballad, popular ballad, popular ballad, folk ballad, popular ballad, folk ballad, folk ballad, folk ballad, folk ballad, F-O-L-K, F-O-L-K, folk ballad, folk ballad. Traditional ballads, traditional ballads. These ballads were usually sung and were begun orally. The oral tradition is a major form of literature all over the world. The oral tradition is a major origin of literature all over the world. So even poetry is not spared the oral origins of literature. Okay, so they were usually sung and transmitted orally from generation to generation. They were usually sung and transmitted orally. The traditional ballads were usually sung. The folk ballad, traditional ballads, were usually sung and transmitted orally from generation to generation. The style of the poem, the style of the ode, the style of the ballad, the style of the ballad is that it is dramatic, it is impersonal, and it is condensed. The style of the ballad is that it is dramatic, it is impersonal, and it is condensed. The style of the ballad is that it is dramatic, it's impersonal, and it is condensed. Condensed is being condensed, just the normal feature of poetry. It has compacted imagery, compacted diction. Impersonal is that the writer removes himself from the narrative process by using mostly third-person narrator or being formal in the reportage. The story told in the ballad, remember we said that the ballad is a narrative poem. So the story told in the ballad usually begins from the end and goes back to the beginning. The story usually begins from the end, meaning that the story is non-chronological in its plot structure. The story is non-chronological in its plot structure. Dialogue is used to spice up the narrative and to make it more dramatic. Dialogue is used to spice up the narrative and to make it more dramatic. Dialogue is used to spice up the narrative and make it more dramatic. Ballads have their own stanzas, called the ballad stanza. Ballads have their own stanza. Somebody asked you, what is the ballad stanza? Or which of the following is the ballad stanza? Right? So you need to remember, the ballads have their own stanza, called what? The ballad stanza. Okay? The first thing you need to note about the ballad stanza is that they are written in quatrains. They are written in what? Quatrains. First thing you need to note about the ballad stanza is that they are written in what? Quatrains. Quatrains. And what is a quatrain? A stanza of 4 lines, a poem or a stanza of 4 lines. A poem or stanza of 4 lines is a quatrain, Q-U-A-T-R-A-I-N. Right? Quatrain. The first thing you need to note about the ballad stanza that is organized in 4 lines per stanza. All right? The first and the third lines have 8 syllables. The first line and the third lines have 8 syllables. The first and the third lines have 8 syllables. The second and the fourth lines have 6 syllables. The second and the fourth lines have 6 syllables. The ballad stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. The ballad stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. The ballad stanza is in iambic tetrameter. Iambic tetrameter. Iambic is spelled I-A-M-B-I-C. Iambic is spelled I-A-M-B-I-C. Iambic. Tetrameter. T-E-T-R-A-M-E-T-E-R. Tetrameter. The ballad stanza is written in iambic tetrameter. By iambic, it is meant that the pattern of stress distribution in the poem is unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. The pattern of stress distribution in the poem is unstressed stress. That means one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable in that order till the end of the line. You first of all have an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable, another unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable till the end of the line. That is iamb. That's iambic foot, right? That's the iambic foot. And tetrameter means that this pattern occurs 4 times per line. Tetrameter means that this pattern occurs 4 times per line. That is why it is more fitting for the part of the syllabus that has 8 syllables. Because on stress, for 8 syllables will be 4 times. So that makes it tetrameter. So part of the description of the ballad stanza is that it is written in iambic tetrameter, written in quatrains. All right? The first and the third lines have 8 syllables. The second and the fourth lines have 6 syllables. Okay? Then we have what we call a broadside ballad. A broadside ballad. Broad. Then you write side, right? As one word. Broadside ballad. B-R-O-A-D-S-I-D-E. Broadside ballad. All right? So the broadside ballad is so called because of the piece of paper used in writing this gives it the name broadside ballad. That's the side of the type of paper used in printing the ballad. Ballads usually talk about contemporary topics. Ballads usually talk about contemporary topics, current topics. The literary ballad is written down. The literary ballad is written, though influenced by the form of the traditional ballad that is oral. So the literary ballad is written down. It's a written version of the traditional ballad. The written version of the traditional ballad. A good example of a ballad is a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It's a romantic poem. A poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Taylor is spelled T-A-Y-L-O-R. All right? You don't want to see your Taylor in that spelling. All right? You don't want to see the person who makes your dress in that spelling. It's T-A-Y-L-O-R. All right? Coleridge. C-O, capital C-O-L-E-R-I-D-G-E. Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And the title of the poem is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It's a romantic poem. You are likely to study it in year 2. It's a romantic poem. Samuel Taylor Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Rime is spelled R-I-M-E. R-I-M-E. Rime. R-I-M-E. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Mariner, right? M-A-R-I-N-E-R. Mariner. Okay? Another important feature of the ballad stanza is that it has a rhyme scheme. That's a rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme is A-B-C-B. A-B-C-B. The rhyme scheme is A-B-C-B. The rhyme scheme is A-B-C-B. Another important aspect of the ballad stanza is that it has a rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme is what? A, B, C, B. Alright, so the first line will rhyme A, the second line will rhyme B, the third line will rhyme C, and the final line will rhyme B. S, B, C, B. Alright? So the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a poem that teaches us to value all creatures of nature. All right? It's a poem that teaches us to value all objects created by God, no matter how small, no matter how tiny, whether they're animal, plants, or otherwise. We have to respect all of God's creature, because not doing so could bring about unimaginable consequences. All right? Not doing so. After reading the rhyme of the ancient mariner, you wouldn't even kill a fly. Right? When you see a fly, you say, "Oh, fly, how are you? How are you this morning?" Because you don't know what will happen if you kill the fly. Right? So in this poem, a mariner, a sailor, killed an albatross, a bird, and he is taught a lesson in how to respect nature in the poem. Because the albatross is part of nature, right? Let's look at the sonnet. The sonnet. The sonnet. The sonnet. The sonnet is a lyrical poem. The sonnet is a lyrical poem. Because it expresses intense emotion. That's the emotion of love, right? It talks about love. Love. It is usually defined. The sonnet is usually defined as a poem of 14 lines. A poem of 14 lines written in iambic pentameter. Written in iambic pentameter. A poem of 14 lines written in iambic pentameter. You should not only define the sonnet as a poem of 14 lines and then you rest, right? And begin to praise yourself that you've done something. The sonnet is a poem of 14 lines written in iambic pentameter. That's the complete definition of the sonnet. The major thematic concern of the sonnet is love. Is what? Love. All right? The major thematic concern. In fact, the sonnet is called love song. The sonnet is a love song. Sonnet is a love song. Okay? We have two major types of sonnets. We have two major types of sonnets. We have two major types of sonnets. We have the Italian sonnet. We have the Italian sonnet. Or the Petrarchan sonnet. Or the Petrarchan sonnet. Petrarchan. Petrarchan sonnet. And then you have the second type is the English sonnet, or the Shakespearean sonnet, or the Elizabethan sonnet. The English sonnet, or Shakespearean sonnet, the English sonnet, or the Shakespearean sonnet, or the Elizabethan sonnet. Right? Okay. So because of time, we'll pause the class here. When we meet again, we'll continue on where we start. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on my social media pages. Thank you.